Michigan had one of the strangest performances that I've seen from any Big Ten team, let alone the Wolverines themselves, in recent memory. So, Michigan, let me walk you through this. They had two missed field goals, one of which was a 60-yarder, but the other was a chip shot. They had two interceptions, a muffed punt, and they had two fumbles. One was on an end around that Northwestern read beautifully, and they hit the receiver. Marsh, when the ball barely was in his hands, got knocked out, was a lateral that was hit out of his hands, and then Brycen Moore fumbled it because Bryce Underwood handed him the ball in horrible fashion. It was a botched handoff from Underwood. Michigan had basically six turnovers, counting the missed field goal, and they won. Now, a few things on this. You can look at this game in two ways, and I think the only way of assessing this game is looking at it in two ways. You can think that Michigan outgaining Northwestern double in total yards, having five turnovers, having 25 first downs to 11, winning the penalty battle, the third down conversion battle, winning the TOP battle, and just having that many turnovers is actually impressive as long as they clean this up. And at the same time, you can think with that shotgun handoff, the timeout called before the game-winning field goal, which gave Northwestern another chance to strip the ball out, among other things, same thing with the end around, you can also say, isn't this just who Michigan is? And I guess we'll find out over these next two games. If they keep winning these close games and beat Ohio State, then I think there's a lot of credence to the fact that this is just a team that needs to work through some things in the preseason entering 2026. This was, I would say, a ugly win, but given the circumstances and given the fact that Michigan shot themselves in the foot that many times, I would also say that, you know what? It's a nice win. I'm going to get a lot of hate for that in the comments section. Believe me, after this one, I would downgrade Michigan in my power ratings a little bit. I certainly would. However, at the same time, let me show you the statistics that I was talking about earlier. When you're -5 in takeaways, you run for 5 yards per carry. Underwood, outside of those two turnovers, had like an 84 QBR, an 84.6. He had 30 rushing yards and a touchdown, long of 15. The pass protection in this game was, I would say, all right. Northwestern does have a good pass rush, but it was still not exactly ideal or desirable. Michigan continued to shoot themselves in the foot and won. That can be very encouraging because Michigan is sucked on the road, so the fact they keep finding these ways to win is better than last year, where they lost to Washington, they lost to Illinois, they lost to Indiana in these close game situations, and they no longer have the kicker or the first-round NFL talent along the defensive line to carry them. So something had to have improved, or this is just who they are. And I think it's a mix of both. I don't think you'll see Michigan, unless they're at home, play a really good game. I just don't think you'll see that. At the same time, this team does have a lot of talent, and they have improved in different areas, and they've improved overall. If you don't think they've improved overall, just look at ESPN's power ratings. Michigan's 18th this year in the efficiency metrics. Michigan is 20th with a top 25 offense and top 25 defense. Last year, in efficiency metrics, Michigan was 32nd, and they, in efficiency again, and they were 29th in FPI. Like, this team is better than last year's team. Is it by enough of a margin to where they went from just being above average to true playoff contender? No. And there's a lot of things they do have to clean up if they want to be successful in the future. There's a lot of coaching decisions yesterday that were questionable. The end around, the shotgun handoff on 4th and 1 when you just need to make the chip shot field goal to win. Michigan's defense played pretty well given all of those turnovers. And the one drive Northwestern had to get a touchdown were some amazing throws by Preston Stone. Zeke Berry had a pretty awful delayed jump to try to bat the pass down on one of those, but they made some amazing catches, some amazing throws. This was all on some game planning, discipline, Michigan's offense. They did look much better than they did against Purdue. They just turned it over way more and weren't playing at home. So that's why the margin of victory and the feel of the game was awfully similar. When you compare, this channel will make you a college football expert and help you enjoy watching games and make more accurate predictions. So what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment your thoughts, and watch the video all the way through so that you can get the full package. And check the description and pinned comment for more ways to help yourself and this channel. Both quarterbacks. Underwood completed 65.6% of his passes. Before the 2 interceptions, he was playing his best game of the year. I would still view the Washington game as better after this performance with the botched handoff and the 2 picks. But overall, with his QBR and with how good Andrew Marsh looked, there are signs of optimism and growth and development in the passing attack and from the offense as a whole. Preston Stone, he had some okay moments, but outside of that one drive, he really didn't look good. It's same old Preston Stone, really. He was a part of the reason why Northwestern was able to cover that 12.5-point spread, but a lot of that had more so to do with Northwestern's defense and Michigan's offense being a unit that is inconsistent, that is struggling. Yeah, it was an ugly game from Michigan. That is a fair way of putting it. The Wolverines have had issues in all of their road games this year, where in all of them, outside of really the USC game and the Oklahoma game, 2 teams that are combined 16-4 right now. Oklahoma's probably going to the playoffs. USC might. We'll see how the Oregon game plays out. In most of their other road wins, most of their other wins in general, Michigan should have won by more. Outside of probably the even the Washington game they should have. This is a team that's always been a few key plays away from being much better than they actually are. So that's just who they are at this point. Looking at Northwestern's schedule, we'll talk about Michigan's and some key takeaways I've had from this game. The Wildcats have an opportunity to beat one of Minnesota or Illinois and go bowling. And that would constitute, I think, a successful season from a team that, look, if not for Michigan having a superior roster, Northwestern would have won. That's just facts. I said it in my preview that David Braun is a better coach than Sherrone Moore after this game. I totally believe that. And if David Braun goes bowling for the Wildcats, I think there is a fair chance that maybe another school could take a chance on him. I don't know. It's a hard place to win at Northwestern with the academic restrictions, with its location, with the fact that they don't really have a keen environment to play in right now. The one thing going for them is their development on the O-line and D-line that has taken place under Braun, and they always seem to do pretty well there no matter who they have. I know they have a 3-game losing streak, but Minnesota is a much worse team than Michigan. And I'm not saying that because Michigan's this great team. Michigan's good. They're not any better than good. Minnesota is just, no. They're not fun to watch. They're pedestrian in the offensive department. They're pedestrian in the defensive department, too, outside of a few players on the defensive front, and maybe Coy Parrish, depending on which version of him shows up. Northwestern should be able to compete in that game, if not win. They might even be favored. And against Illinois, it's a rivalry game. Illinois is a team that is, above average good, but Northwestern should be able to compete there. I think they could have some good matchups there in the trenches. What a season, honestly, by David Braun. If they just win and go bowling, he's the guy definitely for Northwestern. He probably is already, given some of the performances he's put on display this year with the Wildcats. For Michigan, it's all about the Ohio State game. Survive against Maryland by any means necessary, and just try to play your best game against the Buckeyes. Will not guarantee you a win, Ohio State will be favored for very good reason. They should win for very good reason. Maryland is not going to be a guaranteed win, as this Northwestern game showed, as the Purdue game showed. The one good thing about this Michigan team compared to last year's Michigan team is their propensity to be able to win close games and to pull away in a way that last year's team just could not do. Think of Alabama. If not for those turnovers, they lose. Think about Ohio State. They didn't pull away from Ohio State. That was just an ugly game where Michigan's special teams and Ohio State's lacking of special teams and rush offense allowed Michigan to stay in it. Think about Indiana last year. Nearly came back, couldn't finish. Think about Washington and Illinois. Had opportunities, couldn't finish. This Michigan team, for all of their faults, at least can finish. We've seen it against Nebraska. We've seen it against Northwestern. We've seen it against Washington and Michigan State. They are questionable. They're not great by any means. They're certainly not elite. If this team somehow beats Ohio State and Maryland and gets to the playoffs, they're probably going to suffer a pretty ugly-looking loss. However, they have made enough improvements and enough strides to where you're staring down the barrel of your 8-2, 6-1. The odds say you're at least going to win one of the next two games, finish 9-3, 7-2. Can you beat the odds and go 10-2? That is what's going to determine whether this season is another, you know what, it's not the worst thing in the world, but we want to see more. Or can this year be the year where you say, you know what, we're incomplete, there's things we need to work on, but we're able to finish strong, we were able to beat Ohio State again, reach the playoffs, and while we're not a national title contender, we at least made significant progress from last year, enough to where we can say we have faith in the regime, we have a feeling of the direction of this program, and we think it's going in a good direction. Some takeaways. I just want to rehash them since this was a close game. Thought it was a pretty big one given how close it was in the back and forth that occurred in the fourth quarter. Michigan was just better. So they outgained Northwestern 496 to 245 and won with 5 turnovers. This is pretty similar to Alabama versus Oklahoma, for context. So Alabama's definitely better than Oklahoma, but they lost the turnover battle and they just happened to lose the game. It's the same thing here with Michigan over Northwestern, except they just happened to win. Obviously, Oklahoma's much better than Northwestern. Alabama is much better than Michigan. Oklahoma is better than Michigan. But the analogy is similar. When you outgain an opponent by that much and lose the turnover battle that decisively, you are the better team from a power ratings angle. You just lost. The other team executed better. Turnovers are often a very flukish thing. And Underwood in that game basically had 3 turnovers, and I think that was his most in a game all season long. He did not have that many turnovers, for example, against even Purdue. Did not have that many against Michigan State. Did not have any against Washington. Only had 1 against USC. And before that, only had 1 against Central Michigan in that fumble against Nebraska, which was his second road start. It was a comedy of errors for Michigan, and it was so bad in that context. And really disappointing. And if Michigan has that again in their next 2 games, there's a chance they lose out, a very good chance. However, to win in this fashion with all of that going against you, to be able to recover from making mistake over mistake over mistake, if that can be corrected over the next 2 games, that's an admirable thing. That's something you can look back on and say, hey, we won that game. And good for Zavada to get his confidence back. I thought Underwood was good outside of those 3 mistakes. Now, those 3 mistakes are very costly, but from a passing standpoint, he was able to layer his throws. He made nice second and third read progressions. He connected well with Marsh. Marsh did well. McCulley did well. Morgan is Samaj Morgan at this point, but we knew that. Deacon Tonelli had a really good catch. Marsh, 12 receptions for 189 yards. He's super talented. He has over 500 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. True freshman. what a get in recruiting by Michigan. That is a career day from him. Also had a really good game against USC where that was his career high before this game. 2 receiving touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. He's Michigan's wide receiver 1. And it's good that you finally have that emerging and you have more than a 1-game sample size of him doing well, entering a final 2 stretch of games that are Michigan's toughest. That's Michigan's toughest stretch, even tougher than USC and Washington back-to-back due to how good of a team Ohio State is. So, special teams, I sent out a tweet during this game. Of course, the day that Underwood looks really good, special teams are the Antichrist and are just awful across the board. Zavada missing a chip shot, Zavada pulling it right, the punting game not going in Michigan's way. Samaj Morgan muffing that punt. He recovered it, by the way, but you can't complain about the refs when you make those mistakes. I don't want to hear anyone say, oh, that was a call that nearly cost Michigan the game. The reffing crews were awful. Michigan was making mistakes all throughout that game. They ruled Northwestern recovering it on the field, which probably wasn't wise due to the fact he came out from the pile with the ball. But look, you're not going to get every call. And you can't muff punts. Like, muffing it and then recovering it is not a good play. That is a bad play that just wasn't disastrous. J.B. Brown is someone who certainly is going to be under the microscope in this coming postseason for Michigan, and when it comes time for Sherrone Moore to make some coaching changes. As I think Michigan probably will be making some, he might be one of them, we'll see. Zavada getting that redemption field goal at the end, good for his confidence. He was happy. He was excited. Staff was excited for him. Team was excited for him. That was the one positive on special teams in a day that was otherwise terrible in that department. The defense, I wanted to see more havoc plays for sure. I wanted to see more sacks, more TFLs. They were able to get some pressure, but Northwestern was able to get the football out quickly. They were able to get 2 TFLs, but ideally you would want to see more. The good news is, outside of really that one rushing touchdown after the turnover and that one drive where Northwestern was just making some amazing catches, and look, it's hard to hold a team to under 10 points. It is. Like, Michigan's defense last year when operating at peak efficiency, they could. The defense the year prior for Michigan, yeah, they could. Ohio State's defense this year and last year, and the year before that, could. Penn State's under Diaz, could. Some Iowa defenses under Phil Parker, could. Indiana with Bryant Haynes, yeah, some of the Pete Kirby Smart defenses, Nick Saban defense, you get the point. Unless you are a elite defense, it is hard to hold teams to under 10. I thought they did a pretty good job, all things considered. If that defense plays that well for the rest of the year and Michigan's offense cleans up its turnovers, Michigan does have a chance to go 10-2. And last but not least, I do believe Northwestern will go bowling. One of Minnesota or Illinois, they will beat. Again, not a great win for Michigan, not a great win at all. And Northwestern is not a great team, but they're well coached enough and have enough talent and have shown enough fight to where I think between Minnesota and Illinois, who are both worse than Michigan, Illinois is a rivalry game. They get Minnesota at home. I do think they will win one of those games and go to a bowl game. Michigan escapes. They survive. They advance. Northwestern covers the spread. For Michigan, it all comes down to, can they play spoiler, beat Ohio State, and reach the college football playoff? Or just play spoiler, maybe they lose to Maryland. The next 2 games are not guaranteed wins, so Michigan needs to find a way to fix their mistakes and to continuously play to their strengths and keep improving on defense. Thank you for watching. It's my mission on College Football with Sam to make you the most informed, knowledgeable, and entertained fan as possible. We aren't perfect, but we hit the nail on the head more often than we hit our thumb with the hammer. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment, and if you're here, you've probably already watched the whole video. So thank you for doing those things.